Okay, so like I said, these are topics that are on the AP exam, but likely there'll be one or two questions over it. So we're not going to be spending a lot of time in class over it. You will have your open notes quiz when you come in though on Monday morning. So the AM session, which starts at 7:15 a.m. Okay, the derivative of an inverse function. So I know this is a lot of information. So the derivative of an inverse function, if we recall, an inverse function is a function that it's when you solve for the other variable and then switch the letters back. And so it's just saying that suppose when x equals f of y, and it's defined and differentiable at y equals a, where x equals c, so the inverse exists at x equals c, and the inverse of c is a. And then it's saying because dy dx equals dx dy, so you're flipping it. That's all that means is if your derivative of y with respect to x is 2x, then your derivative of x with respect to y, which would be the inverse, is 1 over 2x. So the derivative of the inverse, that's what you can see here, the derivative of the inverse at x equals c, this bar still just means you're at that spot, equals 1 over the derivative of y. So we can find the derivative of a function's inverse at a particular point by taking the reciprocal of the derivative at that point value. So we're going to do a couple examples, and then there's some try problems, and there's some classwork problems for you to do as homework. So the first example, if f of x equals x squared, find a derivative at the inverse where x equals 9. So the first thing we have to think about is what makes f of x equals x squared equal to 9? Because this is the inverse, so it's switched. So even though this says x equals 9, we need it to, for our original, we start at y equals 9. So again, you must determine what you can plug into the function f of x, not the inverse of the function, but the function that gives you 9. So we all know that 3 squared gives you 9. So f of 3 would equal 9. Next, you need to take the derivative of your function. So the derivative of f of x equals x squared is f prime of x, or d dx f of x, which is the same thing, equals 2x. So we just, general power rule. Now from the last slide, if you recall, the derivative of an inverse function is just 1 over that. So that's all we're going to do. Take the reciprocal of the derivative, which gives you that, and I understand it's probably hard to see, but it says the derivative d dx of f inverse of x equals 1 over 2x. So it's just over that derivative. And lastly, we have to plug it into our formula. So the formula I'm talking about, I'm going to go back really quickly, is this right here, where you have this whole thing. So we found this, and it's 1 over 2x. We have to plug it in at x equals c. So let's see. And x is 3, our c is 3 in this point. So 1 over 2x, which is the derivative of the inverse function at x equals 3, gives us 1 over 6. So that is our answer. I'm going to show you how to check your work quickly. So you can check your work by finding the inverse function, so the inverse of this. So if I have y equals x squared, the inverse is x equals square root y, and then remember you flip the variables back, so it's y equals square root x, which is f inverse of equals square root x, and then take the derivative and evaluate it at this spot. But remember, we are plugging in 9 because we flipped it, we've switched it. So instead of plugging in 3 to your equation, you're plugging in 9. So the derivative of this is 1 over 2 root x at x equals 9, which gives you the same thing. I'm going to move on. Remember, you can pause it and copy it. This will also be up on Schoology. Okay. Excuse me. Find the derivative of the inverse function at y equals x cubed minus 1 when x equals 7. So you're going to start this the same way. You have to figure out what x value gives you 7. So what makes this equal to 7? Oh, that should say 7, not 9 right here. I'm sorry. I'll change it before I post it on Schoology. So what gives you 7? And that's x equals 2. Excuse me. At x equals 2, because 2 cubed is 8, 8 minus 1 is 7. Second step, just like before, you're going to take the derivative. The derivative of x is, again, general power rule, so just 3x squared, or y, I guess, in this case. Third step, the inverse. Remember, the inverse is just flipping that derivative, so it's going to be 1 over this. And again, I know it's cut off, but it's just 1 over 3x squared. And lastly, you plug it into your formula, so when x equals 2 and y equals 7, so I'm going to have 1 over 3x squared at x equals 7 equals, or x equals 2, I'm sorry, equals 1 over 12. And again, to check your work, oh, I need to change this part too, I'm sorry, I'll change it for Schoology, but this is what you get if you solve for the other variable, in this case x, and then switch them back, derivative, plug it in. I know I'm moving quickly, but you can always go back and watch this, and you can always email me if you have questions. Okay, this is the last example. Excuse me. So find the derivative of the inverse of y equals x squared plus 4 when y is 29. So again, we have to figure out what x is when y is 29. Well, if we look at it, x is going to be 5. So this one I go through a lot quicker. I didn't go through all the steps. What is the derivative of the function? Well, use power rule again. You get 2x. Y equals 2, or y prime is 2x. With that, remember you flip it and plug it in the formula. So you're going to have 1 over 2x at x equals 5, and then solve for it, which is 1 over 10. One thing to keep in mind with this example is that because x is also negative 5, it could be negative 5 because we're squaring it, it's quadratic. It also gives us negative 1 over 10 if we plugged in negative 5. So that's just something to keep in mind. So again, you can always go back and look at these. If you have questions, email me. And the next page has some try problems. So go ahead and try these. I would pause it. Try them in your notes. The slide after this, which I'm going to move on to in like 30 seconds, has the answers. So you can check your work. If you didn't get them, go back and try and fix them and see what you did wrong or see where you may have made an error. And if you can't figure it out, again, please email me. So these problems I will not be collecting. You can just do them in your notes. They are your try problems. You do need to complete them all though. So here's our answers: 1 over 11, 1 over 8, 2 over 3, and negative 1. And then lastly, 1 through 8 are your classwork. This is your homework. This is what I will be collecting on Monday morning when you come in. So just a reminder that this is due. You will also have an open notes quiz over this information. Feel free to contact me once again via email or through Schoology. And have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. And remember, formal dress with green ties or headbands on Monday. So see you then. Bye.